That was a pretty frustrating game if you're a Bulls fan. Like, there's no way of getting around it because not only did the Bulls come out looking really lethargic in the first quarter, they were down by 19 at one point in the second, and then closed out the half within single digits to where it looked like they were finally going to get their act together, to then coming out of the halftime break and falling asleep yet again, letting the Heat go on a 10-0 run and start going up over 20 points. And again, yet again, the Bulls get blown out by one of the best teams in the league and their third loss to the Heat this season, to add to the poor record that the Bulls have against these top teams in the NBA. And above all, what was really disappointing to see was the Bulls giving up in the game after the Heat went on that run to start the third quarter. Like, guys, this is your moment to show that you can compete with the best of them, that you're a contender in the NBA. And yes, I know the Bulls aren't fully healthy, and yes, Caruso and Lonzo's value and impact cannot be understated, but at some point, you kind of have to call it like it is. And the injury excuse can't always just be something to fall back on, because the Bulls still have their three best players in DeMar DeRozan, Zach Lavine, and Nikola Vucevic. Like, Lonzo and Caruso aside, the Bulls should at least be able to make it a competitive game. Like, if we're going to consider the Bulls one of the best teams in the NBA, they have to at least win some of these games against the elite teams. Bulls are currently winless in all of their games against the Heat, the Sixers, Bucks, Suns, Grizzlies, and Warriors. Not a good look, even with the injuries. Kyle Lowry also wasn't in the game tonight for the Heat, which if you're the Bulls, you have to take advantage of, as he's their main floor general. I don't know, I just expected the Bulls to come out with more fight in them after the loss against the Grizzlies, where they nearly came back and won, and also just because they knew this was going to be a big test for them to really show their value and place in the league. Now, like the game against the Grizzlies, the Bulls' shots just weren't falling. They weren't bad shots. Well, some of them were, but for the most part, the shots that they were taking were smart ones. Just the ball kept rattling out. The difference tonight, though, was that unlike the game against the Grizzlies, the Heat were on fire in knocking down their shots. The Heat were 49% from the field and 39% from three, whereas the Bulls were 48% from the field, which isn't bad, but were atrocious from three yet again. They kind of made up for it in the fourth quarter after Zach started knocking down a few late threes finally, but even still, the Bulls were 7 for 29 from three, and they still keep missing their free throws. Like, what the hell has been going on with that? But I mean, more importantly than the poor shooting, the Heat just straight up outplayed us on both ends of the floor. The Bulls yet again were not prepared for the Heat's defense. DeMar DeRozan, who has been so used to getting to his spot on the floor time and time again, was simply not able to do so tonight because the Heat were ready for him. They knew not to bite on his pump fakes, which is why DeRozan had one of his lowest scoring outputs all season with 18 points, shooting 7 for 16. DeMar, the past couple of games, has started to cool off a bit, which you kind of knew had to be coming at some point. Like, he's still going to bounce back and be the insanely efficient player that he is and that we know, but no player is going to be able to maintain that crazy run that he was going on, putting up 35 plus points on 50% shooting. DeMar did still have 7 rebounds and 3 assists and 3 steals, but also minus 19 in box plus minus. But like I was saying, the Bulls were not prepared, and the Heat were. They knew what they needed to do to shut down DeRozan. They gave Lavine a little more freedom than most teams do to focus on DeRozan, and it worked. And you know, it's not even just that, because even when the Bulls would beat their man on a drive, there was another defender right behind them to pick up his spot. Like, that help defense tonight from the Heat was on point. The Bulls simply did not have an answer for it. And on the other end of the floor, the Bulls didn't do a good job at guarding the perimeter. Like, I thought Jimmy and Bam were going to be the Bulls' biggest problems with the matchups at hand, but no, they both only needed 15 points each and allowed Gabe Vincent, Tyler Hero, and Max Strus to light you up from outside. Javonte Green, a non-factor night. He was minus 27 for the team. Vucevic still struggling with his outside shot. I feel like it's been games since we've even seen him hit a three. And he was getting worked in the paint and flat out just was not aggressive enough when taking the ball to the basket. He had some nice plays, but for the most part, Bam was protecting the paint very well. Zach, although you look at his box score and it seemed like he had a good game, 22 points, 8 for 16 shooting, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, but he was having a lot of mental lapses on offense. By the time he started heating up a bit with his shot, it was a little too late when the Bulls were well behind in the fourth quarter. Ayo was much better with his aggression on offense tonight. He had 18 points, although some of that was in garbage time, but it was good to see Ayo playing with a little more fire in him after having 0 points the other night against the Grizzlies. And he was making nice plays and passes inside. He finished the game with 6 assists to go along with his 18 points, but what I really enjoyed seeing from Ayo in the first half was how locked in he was in guarding Jimmy Butler. Like, that's what I was hoping to see from Ayo in the game against the Grizzlies versus Ja, but Ja Morant is also just insane on offense. But was proud to see Ayo do a great job at guarding Jimmy Butler. And then Coby, another poor shooting night for him, only 9 points on 3 for 11 shooting. I don't know. The Bulls were just off tonight, all around. They were a little sloppy in how they handled the ball. Like, I was surprised to see the Bulls only had 14 turnovers. It just seemed like a lot more. They had 7 turnovers alone in the first quarter. The ball movement wasn't great. They were just out of sorts trying to get guys involved. Guys weren't cutting to the baskets. Screens weren't strong enough where you had the Heat just rolling around them. Anyway, I don't want to just turn this into a Bulls bashing video, because at the end of the day, it is just one game. I'm sure the Bulls will bounce back, as they have done multiple times this season after a bad stretch of games, but it is getting a little concerning how the Bulls have shown up against these higher level teams. Like I always defend, I'm the defender of the fact that context is needed to be provided for the Bulls' poor record against these bad teams because of either COVID or injuries or bad scheduling on back-to-back games. But it's getting to that point now where you have to take a step back and say, are the Bulls just not ready to make that kind of deep run in the playoffs? Maybe they're just not there yet as much as we thought they might be, which isn't terrible, because before the season started, I don't think anybody thought that the Bulls were going to be a title contender. I know I certainly didn't. And they exceeded expectations. But before the season started, we all kind of thought that this team is still a year or two away from becoming a true contender, and that this would be a stepping stone year to start taking them to the next level. And who knows, maybe that pressure is starting to turn on now that the expectations for the Bulls have changed and that people are expecting them to win now and play at an elite level. But I would love to hear what you guys think, though. Let me know in the comments, and as always, guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.